Journal, the internet's #1 English language weekly online cybercast from Japan. Japan Journal with Mal Adams. Rap About It with Mal Adams. Each week, Rap About It focuses on a key issue concerning American minorities. This series also explores current and topical news events in an effort to bring into sharper focus the implications of these events for the minority community. And now your host, Mal Adams.
Well, greetings everybody and welcome to Japan Journal Rap About It episode with Mal Adams here on this beautiful Friday morning in Japan. And I have a very special guest here with me. You can see his face there, Mr. Preston Love Jr. Welcome, my good friend and brother. How are you, sir?
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Let me just introduce to my audience, you're streaming live now here in Japan and globally as well. We're, I believe at 11 o'clock, it's 10 p.m. on your Thursday night in New York, 9 p.m. in Omaha, Nebraska, where you're streaming from. And by way of introduction, this is a breaking program news. We had not much time to promote this, but this is Totown Digital Media, or TDM, on Japan Journal's episode of Rap About It, the Rap About It series with Mal Adams. This is our exclusive interview with Mr. Preston Love Jr. Now, Preston is an American politician and activist who served as Jesse Jackson's campaign manager during the 1984 Democratic primaries. He's the first Black person to receive the support of a major political party for United States Senate in Nebraska, as he was endorsed by the Nebraska Democratic Party for the 2020 United States Senate election in Nebraska. Preston was born in the early 1940s, 1942 to be exact, I believe. He's like a big brother to me. To Betty and Preston Love. In 1966, he graduated with a degree in economics and later became a junior executive at IBM. In 1983, Preston worked for Harold Washington during Chicago's mayoral election, and during the 1984 Democratic primaries, he was selected by Jesse Jackson to serve as Jackson's presidential campaign manager. Preston later became the second associate chairman of the Nebraska Democratic Party and first vice president of the Omaha NAACP. It is a pleasure and a personal joy of mine to be able to host my brother and my friend and my colleague. It's a reunification for us, is it not?
Yes, it is. And it was augmented by your wonderful visit back home here in the States, in Omaha, to receive a very prestigious award that your Japanese associates, friends, and supporters should know, that you were well received here and awarded a Hall of Fame status in the Omaha, Nebraska Press Club, which is, you received the Hall of Fame status as a journalist. And so those who know you may not know that that happened. I was a witness, was there.
Yes,
it cannot be disputed. It's not misinformation.
Okay.
It is the truth. And not only that, but I feel as if we're family. We have been dear friends, and our families have been connected since we were tots. And it started before you were born.
That's right.
And we have endured in so many ways that it's exciting to reunite spiritually and physically and through these cosmic waves in a positive way. And it's my pleasure.
It's a great opportunity for me to have you on this program as we try to introduce luminaries from around the world of whatever ilk, but either entertainment or politics or social human life, etc. But you, having been a family friend and a big brother to me, I wasn't born because I'm the youngest of 7 in my family, and you're the senior in your family. So I also know your brothers, Norman Love and Richie Love. But let me share this story as we talk about families. I think this
Yes,
particular
sir.
segment, we're just going to kick it about our family relationship in
Oh,
Japan,
yes.
and I want you to draw the parallel to how Omaha has bred us and raised us through our families. That's a significant point I want you to make at the
Yes,
end of this exchange. But let me
yes,
just share the
yes.
fact that your dad is one of the most noted musicians to ever come out of Omaha, Nebraska at the age of 22, sitting on the front row there playing saxophone for the likes of Count Basie, and then ended up being the music director, impresario, and conductor for the Motown band when Motown moved to California. And as the senior son, you were in your teenage years and college years, went on and made your own mark. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm leading up to, you spent a lot of years away from Omaha, but you reemerged. At what point in time and what motivated that return to Omaha to do the various activities that you're involved in terms of activism right now?
Well, thank you for asking, because not only that, as I heard you read what in effect could be called my bio or resume, I began to
An
smile.
abbreviated version of it.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I began to smile because we're also focused on what we're doing now and our day to day. It's, oh my goodness, it's really sobering to remember even my own life,
Yeah.
and each of those line items, oh, command so many in my head. That is, so many stories. I have 50 stories per line item.
I bet you did. You know, that's
But
very interesting. You complimented me and thank you for mentioning my induction to the Omaha Press Club Hall of Fame. But as they were introducing me, one of my dear colleagues of 52 years ago, who I started in the business with, you were sitting at the table right next to and our family delegation and friends. And as he was reading that introduction, I was wondering about whom he was speaking.
yeah, yeah, and people say that as a comedy line, but it's true.
It's true.
When you reflect back on your life and think about the good, the bad, the ugly, where you've come from, where you've been, and quite frankly, where you are, and we're still kicking. But to answer your question, uh, my dad, as you mentioned, was an international uh, jazz musician, highly respected uh, and highly celebrated. However, Mel, you would understand because of your historical interrelationship with many musical iconic people, but people don't recognize you as a star these days unless you have a hit record. And that's a flaw and a mistake. So my dad doesn't have the name recognition uh, with those who operate at that level. But those who go beyond that and go to a little deeper, I had high respect for my dad as a journeyman and a master of his instrument, and all of the history with some of the iconic names like Count Basie, Duke Ellington, all the ones, well, all the things you mentioned. My dad was on the forefront. And so in 2004, something happened that I didn't believe could happen. And I think maybe you may have had the same experience. I didn't think my dad could die,
Yeah.
and he did in 2004. My mother was beginning and evolved with dementia into Alzheimer's. I don't really know the difference, and I came home in 2006 because of that, is the answer to your question.
I see.
To having had what I thought in 2006, if you do the quick math, it's essentially 15 years ago, that at that point, 15 years ago, I said that I'd come home and be with my mom and just relax because I'd had a full life. Ha ha! That turned out to be a joke.
You were just getting started.
I had a full career on the national level and all of that, and exemplary experiences. You mentioned many of them. And so I didn't come here to do anything other than be with my mom and to just kind of, wean out my life. Oh boy, was I mistaken. I will give you a hook for us to talk about if you want to.
Please.
But what I found, Mel, in our beloved hometown and our beloved section of town called North Omaha was very disappointing, disheartening, and devastated I was because it had become a poverty-stricken community, not poor as we were, but poverty-stricken in the midst of wealth. Yeah. And also dilapidated and blight, and also on another level, voting at very low rates, very low community engagement, and something happened to me that has kept me very busy for these last 15 years.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That's a great segue to my next question. Specify what keeps you busy now. There's so much on the table for you, but let's talk about Black Votes Matter. Let's talk about your educational performances at the University of Nebraska at Omaha teaching Black history. You can speak.
Yes.
Let's talk about your activity with the youth in taking them on tours to iconic symbols in the South that reflect the history and the symbolism of the civil rights movement. And let's talk about your activism in Omaha, Nebraska politically. Enumerate a few of those things one by one, if you would.
Well, they all are rooted in something that has occurred to me. Well, I don't want to over dramatize, but the airways are clear because you and those watching can see my gray hair and yours.
I'm a little gruff and rough here.
So I'm giving you an abstract beginning to your question by saying I will be 80 on my next birthday. And what that says to the thinker is that I have lived these years and survived, and I have experienced life and the world and community, and I have learned by mistake and by observation and by study and by participating. And so now this gray hair is a symbolic statement of my wisdom.
Understood.
And my wisdom and everything related to my activities has actually become my voice. My voice. And my voice can be found, Mel, in my work. My work is my voice out in various ways. So I'm an author. I've written 5 books, but I'm not a writer. I am my voice on paper.
Right.
And my wisdom on paper. But my focus has been community. But there were some things that have occurred to me now that brought me to my knees and brought me to my agenda here back in our wonderful North Omaha. And it is centered around the youth. And so I can talk about my teaching at the university in Black studies and political science, but I'm teaching because I want my voice and my wisdom to go into the minds and the spirit of our youth as I teach things that I have seen and learned and participated and studied. Politics.
Good transition, because we can get into all of those things. But you supplied a video to me that kind of reflects your activity with youth. I
Oh,
want my viewers to
yes,
look at that at the top of the show so that we can talk about
yes.
things.
May I cue it up?
Yeah, while you're doing that, let me do the technical side
Okay,
of it here, and just tell us what this is and what this
sure.
represents. I
Well,
mentioned Black Votes Matter, but I also mentioned your tour. Describe that to our viewers, please,
Black
and what
Votes
you're doing
Matter.
with youth.
I will try to make this preamble a little quick, but I have two nonprofits that I have. One is devoted to consulting work, but the other is Black Votes Matter.
Okay.
But the full name is Black Votes Matter Institute of Community Engagement. That organization is active in many things, all rooted in my eye on the youth. What I found, Mel, unfortunately, as I talk to my college students and I lecture in high schools and middle schools, my youth, my African American youth mainly, do not know their own Black history.
I see.
And that is where I became invigorated, if that's a word, to get busy, because we can't wait and see what happens. And so I visualized and organized and now produce an annual event where I take 50 to 60 high school students,
Yeah.
predominantly African American, but now it's Africans, it's Japanese, it's Latinx, it's Jews, it's the whole diversity realm. But I take them to the iconic places in the South to learn their history face to face. I take them to Memphis. I take them to Birmingham. I take them to Jackson, Mississippi. I take them to Tuskegee. I take them across the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Wow.
I take them where Rosa Parks sat and walked. I take them there and to Atlanta, all expenses paid. Every year.
Wow.
Every year. And now I have over 250 alumni. But this clip, 5-minute clip, is I wanted to share with you and your viewers a little peek into the tour.
Okay, let's do that now, and then when we come back, I'm gonna bring in my Japanese contributor, Mr. Niki Sekino, who is also an educator, but also can benefit from your experience, your knowledge, wisdom in his realm. He has some issues he will share. We're going to talk about some caste system in Japan historically. It's not white supremacy, but it's human caste and discrimination and repression that many people will not know of, that occurred in Japan over the years and the decades and the centuries. Because it's taboo. Japanese, who are homogeneous for the most part, don't discuss it. But America's diversity requires us to speak out and fight for our own rights and protection. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to talk about the voting rights suppression. I want you to analyze all of that for us. What's going on even after 100 years? My granddaddy was
I would say that
1908 after
I'm sorry. As we dotted line and go into the video, keep in mind that this tour is teaching the history, but it surely has a dotted line to here and now when we try to teach our kids about voting and voting rights, all of that. They got to learn the history to understand
Okay,
present.
and that brings up my inquiry that I'm going to have for you is for you to analyze what is the pushback politically in America and by extreme conservatives on critical race
Race
theory.
theory.
Please speak on that. Let's go to the videotape right now. I'll try to share this screen, and you can still speak over it. But
Okay.
let me go here, and I want to share it now. Tell me what you see. I'm going to enhance it a
It's
little bit.
on right now.
Okay, is it full screen right now to
Yes,
you?
it is.
Okay,
Yes.
here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 2021 Black Votes Matter Tour highlight 5-minute video. Bear with us and enjoy this, please.
You go first. Me? Okay, well, I got you. So,
Is it audible? Can you hear it okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
the time starts now. We can't just be sitting back. We have to do it. I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried
Edmund Pettus
in
Bridge.
my grave and go
And
home to my Lord and be
that's
free.
Montgomery.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, my
That's the
name is
King
Mariana
Center.
Miller and I'm a junior at Legacy High School in Bismarck, North Dakota. In December of 2019, I was blessed with the amazing opportunity to go on the first ever Black Votes Matter tour. I have always had a huge interest in Black history and civil rights, but this tour not only expanded those interests, but it equipped me with tools that I could use in the real world to apply these interests and do what I love while applying my love for Black history. On January 25th of 2021, I presented to the school board the formal request for the banning of the Confederate flag. And for those of you who know nothing about North Dakota, one thing that you should know is that it is a very conservative state, so there is no ban in place like this. 2 weeks later, I learned that they accepted my formal request, and the Confederate flag is now banned at Bismarck Public Schools. I wholeheartedly believe that this tour gave me the confidence that I had to go in front of them and give this speech that I would not have gained elsewhere. This tour really built up my confidence in that aspect.
I'm here with Omaha's future, our youth. We're here in Birmingham, Alabama, and we have had an exciting day. We are sitting on the steps of the 16th Street Baptist Church. The 4 little innocent girls were killed. What goes through your mind when you visit this church? Well, my heart always flutters, not only because of the loss of life, but the injuries and the hate, how far hate will go.
Me too, and I've already learned so much. Like, I just want to keep learning and do more things like this and try to get, like, my brother and sister to go in places like this. So, yeah, I learned a lot of emotions, a lot of understanding. And you have to take that all in and then use it, like, in your lifestyle when you wake up every morning. And, like, people are starting to really fight for African Americans.
This morning, we're in Selma, Alabama, and we visited the iconic Edmund Pettus Bridge, where John Lewis was beaten bloody as he fought for, with many others, the right to vote. The lady I'm talking to is the Omaha Public Schools Superintendent. The
I see,
1965
okay.
Voting Rights Act,
This is
which
amazing.
parenthetically is under siege right now.
Like, me personally, the first day I did kind of feel it different because I knew everything about that place already. But, like, as I went on, I started to, like, feel like I had to make something of myself in the future because I didn't want everything to go to waste. I was getting chills earlier because the Ku Klux Klan outfit had dried blood on it, and that literally gave me chills. And it's unreal to me. My first time I witnessed something Black history like was when I was in 2nd grade, and my mom showed me a video of Emmett Till. It was uncensored, And I was traumatized since that very moment. And that's like what sparked me. And I definitely do want to make something of myself one day because
we're in day 5 of this wonderful tour. Today, we're in Montgomery, Alabama. We're standing here at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice.
To really get a change out there is we need to get more into law, like have people on the inside and have more Black people be part of like governors instead of be part of senators or lawyers. And so we can change the laws on the inside instead of having to go out to the streets all the time where it doesn't always work.
Time for the city jail. Time for the city hall. Constitution of the United States. That would do freedom. 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 Justice. 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 Yes, Lord. 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 Freedom. 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 We got a job to do.
We got a job to do. Wow.
And may I say, as we return, that the voices and the songs were sung, that was on the tour when we were in Birmingham, Alabama. That was the choir of the 16th Street Baptist Church who walked across the street and met us at the Kelly Ingram Park, where the iconic images of the hoses and the dogs, that's where that happened, and sang those songs to us and all those kids. And so that was real. That wasn't off of a recording. Okay. So I hope that you got that.
Let me pause right here and we'll continue this. I'm going to bring in my guest collaborator, Mr. Nikki Sekino. Nikki, please unmute your mic and open your camera and join us, please. This is my friend Nikki. Hey, Nikki. What do you think, brother, on that video?
Wow. This is inspiring. Inspiring.
Wow.
Man, I didn't know that. This is real nice.
Isn't it amazing? What comes to mind, Nikki? We got him here live now.
Yeah.
You and I will compile a group of our students from Japan, and we will join this tour 1 year.
Oh, would I love that?
Would we be welcome to do that? And
yes, sir. Guess what? Well, I don't have to check with anybody.
That's why I got you.
It's my tour.
Nikki.
And let me tell you, we have each year is a little different, but we have taken 2 full buses. And so, when we have the interest beyond the one bus full of 40 to 45 students, we had a couple years where we took more. But surely the welcome mat is open. Now, the answer to your question in one sentence, that's what motivates me to get up every morning and use my wisdom and voice to try to help our students.
That is powerful. I was on the verge of tears watching that and watching.
Same here.
Let me just introduce you properly. Nikki Sekino. Nikki is his American name. We'll let him tell you that story later. But Nikki I've been in Japan over 45 years, and he's been a friend since the first day. When I first came here, there was an organization called the Japan African American Friendship Association, which still exists in spirit, but we're on the verge of reorganizing and reactivating it. It's since 1981. I am president emeritus of that organization, but in my absence, Nikki was also president for 1 year. Is that correct, Nikki?
Right.
Okay.
About 2 or 3 years afterward, yeah.
Okay, about 2 or 3 years after. And Nikki is a good brother, a good cross-cultural icon in my life here. In Japanese we say senpai. He's my senpai in Japan. That means my elder brother, my upperclassman That's a very important structural relationship in Japanese society. Dai senpai, but I'm his senpai in terms of American and African American things, and we exchange.
Ah,
He
okay.
is an educator of the youth of Japan here, and he's
Mm.
got some issues. And when he found out you were a professor as well, Preston, of Black History, he was also very excited. So, Nikki, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us. And it's an opportunity for us to exchange with Mr. Preston Love. First of all, Nikki, your impressions of the video you just saw. Tell us about it.
Oh, this is amazing. I love it. I love it. And I thought about something, like, well, number one, Preston and I share the same love. Like he's talking about helping the social bottom class in, where was it?
Uh-huh.
Omaha, right.
Yes, sir.
Right. And like economically and possibly educationally oppressed, and helping them, give them some light for their future. And I exactly have the same passion myself. I am a teacher, teaching English to Japanese students, but the passion is to help Japanese people to be independent.
Mm.
And to be independent thinkers and the business people or adults, so they can work or live in Japan, not just in Japan, but in the world too. So I want to be,
Go ahead.
yeah, I want to be inspiration. This is not clearly understood by some students, and I am struggling.
Yeah, right. And we share your struggle.
Yeah.
He's having a hard time getting the point across. Nikki, a little bit about your background in the United States. Give us a brief summary of your educational background. You're
Oh, okay.
in Texas, right? Is what you're saying?
Right. I lived in Texas for 4 years. I went to, actually, I went to two schools, graduate schools. One, first one was University of Dallas. I majored in business, MBA, trying to get MBA. And then I didn't finish it, then transferred to University of Texas at Arlington. Then, my God, I didn't finish it either. So in 4 years, I went to two graduate schools and did not graduate because
excuse me,
I was occupied by other things, not just being playing around, but I was interested in meeting people outside campus. So I met many interesting people, like in a city of Fort Worth. I became a friend of mafia boss. His name was Tony. And then I met other interesting people and then became sort of associated with them. Then my grades were bad. Just to explain my educational failure, whatever, I about 3 years ago, I went to graduate school again, and I got my MA in TESOL, teaching English for speakers of other languages. So it was my, I don't know.
May I mention,
Sure.
Nikki, and I know you, if you're on a flow, I will wait to mention.
please go ahead.
Yeah, I received my degree in economics from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln in 1966.
Ooh, okay.
But I received my master's in 2018.
Very similar. Very
There's
similar.
hope for a brother like me.
We're linked at the hip. So some of your struggles, I shared them in my own way, because it took me 50 years before I could settle on, the whole idea, and I'll stop, but the whole idea of the discipline as an adult after you've lived a while is a different kind of challenge to bone down and do your studies. Because life, when you have no bills, if you have no problems, you have no all the burdens of life, you can focus. But when you have all of those, then the challenge to get finished is there, but you have another view of the end of the tunnel that does motivate you to get
yes,
through it.
right.
Yes.
If I may interject about my own educational background, I'm educationally deprived at the higher level. For one reason is because I had to go to work. So at the age of 19, as having completed 1 year at University of Nebraska at Omaha as a freshman in the first.
What year was that?
That was 1969. Where were you at 1969?
1969. I was
Graduated 66 in Nebraska. So after that, where?
By then I was a junior exec at IBM.
IBM based in Chicago?
No, in the 15 years that I was with IBM, I lived in 8 different locations.
Oh, wow.
But in 1969, I was in Des Moines.
Okay, the reason I asked, you're close enough then to know what was going on in Omaha,
Nebraska absolutely.
at that time. And
yes, sir.
I'll give you the background because that explains why, as a freshman in college, I was hired and took an audition to appear on TV as a broadcast journalist and was hired on the spot that day.
Yes,
and
sir.
It precluded me from continuing my education because I was getting paid to learn.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to take something from you.
Yeah, no. I want to go to law school, but I only got about 10 more years.
yeah. But I'm gonna share quickly with the audience of something you threw in there, but they might have went off, is why that made sense in 1969 in Omaha, Nebraska, is because the smoke was still
absolutely. Thank you for picking up on that part.
From the civil disobedience and riots coming from, number one, the shooting of a 14-year-old girl in 1969 by the name of Vivian Strong, by the police who was just having fun with kids, and they were running around, shot her in the back of the head, and it tore our community up, and we tore the community up.
1968?
And 1970, we had a bombing, and the Black Panthers were arrested en masse, and 2 of them were given life sentences, and one of them has died, and the other is still living in. But that was the environment, and people were running to try to hire folks and try to mitigate some of that.
Yeah. And that Black Panthers incident was strongly believed. There's strong evidence that was a setup as well.
Oh yes, and I'm fighting right now.
I know
in my work right now.
Name your names. Poindexter.
Ed Poindexter and David Rice.
Yes, sir.
Were the 2 gentlemen. They were set up by COINTELPRO and the environment of getting the Black Panthers and activists in the Black movement by any means necessary. And so
an FBI domestic intelligence service, which was illegal.
Yes.
But to quell the rise of Black spokespeople and exciting the Black community to fend for themselves, it was suppressed and successfully. And then came the 80s and the cocaine and the drugs and the unemployment and the lack of education. You're fighting that fight today. The remnants of that fight is what is on your agenda to this day.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. The fight continues. But may I say to you, Nikki, that's the same wonderful America that interned Japanese people on the West Coast, held them behind. They kept.
I may venture to say the one of the worst incidents of racial profiling in American history. Black folks certainly suffered from it, but when you arrest Japanese just on their nationality, their heritage,
are you familiar with that?
Of Japan, it was.
Nikki, are you familiar with that?
You are you're talking about not concentration
Concentration
camp.
camps
Yeah,
Yeah,
in America
right.
of Japanese people.
But
Right.
I'm saying to everyone in the listening ear and eye that America, we love it, but the history is what it is. And it is a lot more symbolic than it is substantive. And so when you talk about, and this is a segue that you might not want to go to right
No, I
now.
want to go there. Critical race.
But-
Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. But we're not talking about some theory. We're talking about truth and facts and history. And that is being accused of by someone not thinking, but someone who has an agenda, because the truth hurts, to stop us from teaching the truth and have the nerve to call what we're doing when we teach the truth is that we're teaching race theory, not fact.
No,
And that's nonsense.
please explain to Nikki, are you familiar with the critical race theory controversy in the United States? Critical race theory nomenclature, it's been confused, it's been labeled. Preston can give us more insight but it started as a theory in the legal educational system.
Yeah.
I saw a great interview with the sister who coined that name, and that should be studied, but it has implications in simple terms about the fight against us promoting the true education of American history. So whatever about 1776, we need to talk about 1619 when the first slaves arrived in Virginia.
That's right.
And that determined the racial profile and white supremacy. European immigrants from the Caucasus Mountains, the Caucasians came in here. They were just like blacks and Mexicans. But when they came to America at that point in time, they were tricked and lied to by the landowners who gave them a false privilege and a false status to monitor policing of slaves who were running away, who were rebelling. That history is not told. We've been fighting this fight for 400 years. Preston, speak on that. Nikki, are you aware of that history, though?
Yeah, somehow, yes.
Okay. Well, if you,
I am studying.
It's actually, you have to be a math major to understand this.
That's right.
So, Nikki, I know you know nothing but English and Japanese, but here's a lesson in math. If you take the number 1619 and you put 400, you add them together, you end up with 2019.
Wow, yesterday.
And that's 400 years is what that 400 is. Wow. And when the first ship arrived in Virginia with slaves to be slaves on that ship was 1619. And that was the beginning of the formal slavery, even though some of it was informal, in America. And the idea of it is someone would challenge that never happened, and that we're trying to say that racism is not worth talking about going all the way back.
Or it was 400 years ago, get over it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, get over it.
But what it manifested was, if I may interject, institutionalized the racism that became a part of the American infrastructure and system. In all aspects of it. The professor knows more. He teaches that. But it needs to be discussed. And I'm, as a guy who is an expatriate observing, it's amazing to me that why would you protect a lie because you're a 14th generation white person in America? That doesn't preclude you from recognizing the lie of your past.
The same reason why the FBI, under the leadership of Edgar Hoover, spied and created this COINTELPRO.
That's right.
Was to hold down the emergence of leadership and the people, scared the people may get inspired by the truth, get inspired by the struggle. And so that's why no one wants us to go around telling the truth. The issue also, I'll just throw this out here. There's too much to cover in the time that we have. But the issue now about the critical race theory and all of this is that there is what we're doing now is beginning to open up the discussion of the residuals of slavery on today. So that it's not about what happened. The reason why we have health disparities, the reason why we have mass incarceration,
voter
the reason
suppression,
why we have educational gaps, all of that can be drawn historically back to the effects of slavery.
Absolutely.
That's a truth that a lot of people don't want to deal with.
You don't want to make
and it has come to a head in America, Nikki and Malcolm, even more so because COVID pulled the covers off the disparities.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. I recommend you, Preston, on your program. I will introduce you to Dr. Lane Rowling, who's a virologist, immunologist, and an infectious disease specialist of beyond compare, a black man who's been on my show as a very good contributor since COVID broke. And what he told me a year and a half ago has come to pass. There will be variants. There's vaccines do not affect. Colin Powell, rest in peace, speak on it, passed with COVID after having been vaccinated 2 times.
Yes, so, but he also had Parkinson's and other conditions. Okay. So it's really an overstatement to make it sound like he only had COVID and then died.
That's right. He had certain
existing conditions.
As do African Americans historically. Diabetes, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But let me. We only got about 10 minutes left, but I do want to go back to Nikki since this is going out to our Japanese guests as well. Nikki, please. 2 things I want you to briefly summarize. We talked about racial discrimination, not racial, but cultural and classism in Japanese history. Please abbreviate your explanation about the history of the Burakumin people in Japan, or the translation is people living on the riverbanks,
right,
on the outskirts of town, and how they, to this day, it is taboo for the average Japanese to even discuss it. So you want to talk about a pushback of critical race theory.
Is this an analogous to like homeless here?
Homeless, but only a discriminated class of people.
Yeah, but no, I didn't mean it that way. But on the water bank.
But a class of people, absolutely.
Yeah, they're not living there in resorts.
No, not at all. On the outskirts, down and out on the outskirts.
Yeah, okay.
They're discriminated against. And tell them why. In the Buddhist tradition, what were their role and their function, and how are they the antecedents of the kabuki actors? Speak on that, if you will, briefly, Nikki. We only got about 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So this was history, to my knowledge, started in the maybe a mid-19th century. This was Japan was in the samurai age. It's called the Edo period. During the time there was a caste system in Japan. There were 4 classes.
Caste.
The caste. The top was samurai. Samurai is a military class. The legal second class was farmers because they produce food. And the third is craftsmen. So they produce things like chest of drawers. And the lowest...
Skilled laborers, craftsmen.
Skilled laborers, craft people. And the lowest was merchants because they are dealing with the businesses. Sell things and buy things. They make money out of money.
Yeah.
And there were 4 classes in Japan. Below that was a undercaste. And the Japanese term is called the ETA, E-T-A. And they were not allowed to live in the regular neighborhood. And they had no choice but to build houses on river beds. and the people call them river-based beggars.
Beggars, riverbank beggars.
Yeah, and they formulated a singing show using girls. And because of that, because the dancers and singers are girls, people, mostly men, went there for the watching the show, and afterward prostitution. They paid money for their sexual services. And the government realized that, they banned the show. Then the owners of the theaters used boys instead of girls. But men still like boys too for sexual services. And these boys, they started dancing and playing. They are the origin of today's kabuki theater. Theater. Yeah, kabuki.
The background of history is current kabuki acting right now. There are men that are playing women's roles, and that is derived from that tradition of how the prostitution was quelled, and then it became something like that. So there are an underclass people that discriminate, and Japanese have a very intricate system of historical records at the city offices and the vital statistics. People today will trace your history to see whether you're a descendant of that group, so your daughter will not marry. Your daughter can't marry them. That's right. You can't fake it. You can't. So it's not racial in the sense of diversity in America or ethnic. It's caste, and so Nikki has described to me the seriousness of the problem is that it's taboo to even talk about it. You know.
Oh yeah, it's taboo.
As a journalist, I've tried to get interviews on this, and people are not willing to go on record and discuss it. So, similar but different. It's humanity, man. Man's humanity.
Yes, sir. It takes all forms, but it's the same thing. It takes different forms, but it's the same thing.
I got 4 minutes. I'm gonna.
Okay, I have
got the floor.
That's all.
I have 1 minute that I must get. This is an opportunity I would never get. I have a lifelong friend. His name is Steve Takechi. Steve Takechi. He's part of a 3-generation Takechis that I know.
Yeah.
They're Japanese, and they own and have owned a jewelry store in this community. And Steve and I have been friends since we were in grade school, junior high. He was president and I was vice president of the city council at our high school. And we have been friends to the day. I would feel remiss if that I give him honor in front of you, Nikki, because of his heritage. I knew his father and mother, what grand people. His mother died at 104, and her memory was extraordinary. And they
let me just interject here. At Central High School, Julie, his sister, was my classmate.
And
and they had the jewelry store, a prominent Japanese family. And to this day, I met Steve in Japan because the city I live in right now, well, the prefecture.
Was it a sister city?
Shizuoka City, 40 minutes drive from here, is the sister city of Omaha, Nebraska. And Steve has come to Japan, and I've interpreted for them and the mayor of Omaha at that time. Isn't it amazing? So two things, and this is the business part of the show. We're talking about the Black Votes Matter tour. We're going to connect our Japanese students with that, my brother, and I would appreciate the opportunity to include them. Let's make that happen. Next thing is, I want you to look at the sister city relationship between Shizuoka City and Japan and see where we can interact. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
And you know, quite frankly, Steve tried to get me to do that years ago.
Well, now's the time. You got to do it. Because Nikki's here, I'm here, and we can make that connection. And then what it allows us to do is to broaden the platform it's not just black folks in Omaha or Mexican or
Yeah,
Asian
yeah.
people, and there's a discrimination increase on Asians in America being attacked on the street, that
Yes.
kind of thing, because of our former president.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing. So I'm
it's
going to wrap it
increasing
up.
here
So
in
I just make my appeal to you. Let's continue this relationship. I want you to maintain your contribution to this series, if you will, Japan Journal. Feel honored to be a contributor, and we'll help introduce your concepts. There's so much more to talk about. We've only
Yes.
had an hour, but
Well, let me say this while we're recording. I'm committed and confirmed
thank you.
for this relationship with you, my friend, that continues, and with my new relationship with Nikki, and I get immersed in the Japanese culture best I can for the years that I have left. Let's do the best we can. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm going to give Nikki the last word, and you got to do it in 2 minutes. Where did you get the name Nikki, brother?
Okay, I got the nickname in Houston, Texas, and my boarding school didn't serve lunch, so I had to go to somewhere to eat lunch, and that was a cafeteria in the University of Houston, and the cashier was a black lady. I fell in love, and she wanted to know my name. I said, my name is Shinichi, and she couldn't pronounce it because my first name has four syllables. And next day she told me, hey, you have a nickname. I said, what is it? Nikki. So that was in 1973. Since then, I'm Nikki.
And
I'm
that's
more comfortable
Yeah.
with this name.
But Nikki, I need to tell you this. I met her. You ought to know what she calls me. No.
Well, we were
ladies and gentlemen,
competing.
on that note, I'm going to bid you all farewell. Thank you very much for joining this program, Japan Journal, and the Rap About It with Brother Mal episodes. Our special guest, Preston Love Jr., and our contributor, Mr. Nikki Sekino. Thank you very much. That's going to do it for this edition. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more, and you'll be seeing more of my new collaborator, Mr.
Thank you
Preston
for
Love.
having me.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Preston,
Enjoyed
stay
it.
well, my brother, and we'll talk soon.
Love to see the tape.
All right. Sayonara.
Sayonara. Okay.
From Japan.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Japan Journal, the internet's #1 English language weekly online cybercast from Japan. Japan Journal with Mal Adams.
Rap About It with Mal Adams. Each week, Rap About It focuses on a key issue concerning American minorities. This series also explores current and topical news events in an effort to bring into sharper focus the implications of these events for the minority community.